Level 1, the confident one. You will not be fired. You will be made unaffordable. You are sitting in a performance review. Your manager says the word headcount 4 times in 11 minutes. You count. This is not the dramatic turn. This is just a Tuesday. The replacement does not arrive with a countdown. It arrives disguised as a productivity tool a colleague is excited about in a Slack channel with a fire emoji next to it. You have been at this company for 3 years. You are good at your job? Not great. Good. The kind of good that gets you a 4% raise and a LinkedIn post from your manager calling you a valued member of the team. You believe that sentence. You have no reason yet not to. Someone on your team mentions a tool, a new one. It writes the first draft of the reports you use to spend half a day on. You try it that afternoon out of curiosity. It is not as good as you. You tell yourself that with relief. You tell 2 other people that with relief. The relief is doing a lot of work in that sentence and you do not notice. You go home. You do not think about it again for 3 weeks. You are not worried. You have a skill set, 3 years of institutional knowledge, relationships with clients who know your name. None of that has a price tag attached to it yet, in your mind. It will. You go to sleep. You do not know the version of your job that exists right now will not exist in 2 years. You do not know the tool you tried for 10 minutes today will by then do 60% of what currently makes you valuable. Nobody is telling you this. The information would be bad for morale, so nobody says it. You are still the confident one. Enjoy it while it's free. Level 2. The early adopter. 6 months later. The same tool is now mandatory. It has a name now. A login. A training session that took 90 minutes, that everyone in your department attended with their cameras off, half listening, certain this was another piece of software that would be quietly abandoned in a year like the last 4 platforms your company rolled out and never used again. This one does not get abandoned. You start using it the way you're told to draft faster, to get through the boring 60% of your job so you can spend more time on the interesting 40%. That is the pitch. You believe the pitch. The pitch is not technically a lie. Here is what nobody tells you in the training session. The interesting 40% was never the part they were paying you for. The boring 60% was. The part that took hours, day after day, which is the actual economic reason your salary exists. You just automated the only part of your job that justified your head count. You think about it as efficiency instead. You finish your work in 6 hours instead of 8. You feel ahead. Your manager notices the faster turnaround and says nothing directly. But next quarter, the team's targets go up. Not because business is booming, because the tool made it possible to ask for more from the same number of people. You hit the new targets. Barely. You work the same 8 hours you always did, except 2 of them now go to absorbing the work that used to belong to someone else. Someone quietly not replaced when they left in March. You called that a hiring freeze. It was not a hiring freeze. Level 3, the competitive one. A year in. You have become genuinely excellent with the tool. You know the prompts other people don't. You know how to make it sound like you instead of a robot impersonating a person. You have, without really deciding to, become the person on the team who is good with AI. That phrase starts following you into meetings. This feels like job security. For a while it is. You train 2 junior colleagues on how to use the tool the way you do. It feels generous. It feels like leadership. You are, in a very literal sense, teaching 2 people how to do the version of your job that requires fewer people to do it. You are training your own replacement's replacement and calling it mentorship. You must adapt. You must stay ahead of the tool instead of behind it. This is the only strategy anyone is offering you, and it is not wrong exactly. It is just temporary in a way nobody says out loud. The market for good with AI is not a small, defensible moat. It is a skill 50,000 other people in your industry are acquiring this exact same year, because everyone got the same memo, sat through a version of the same training, and is arriving at this exact same realization at roughly the same pace you are. The advantage lasts about as long as it takes everyone else to catch up. You don't know that yet. Right now it just feels like winning. Level 4. The quietly replaced. 18 months in, the team is smaller, not all at once. Nobody got a dramatic firing. It happened the way these things actually happen. duller and colder than the version in the movies. A contractor's project ended and wasn't renewed. A colleague left for another company, and the role was never reposted. Someone took a buyout framed as an opportunity. Each departure had its own clean, individual, reasonable-sounding explanation. Lined up next to each other, the explanations form a pattern nobody in leadership will say out loud, but that shows up clearly enough in the org chart. The team that used to be 11 people is now 7. The work that used to take 11 now gets done by 7 and the tool. Nobody calls this a layoff. The word implies a moment. This was not a moment. This was a slope. You survived the slope. You tell yourself this means something about your value. It might. It might also mean you were simply not yet the most expensive name on a spreadsheet someone was looking at. Your manager pulls you aside, not to fire you, to tell you your role is being restructured. Your title stays the same. Your scope gets wider. You are now doing the work that used to require 1.5 people for the salary of 1, with the help of a tool that makes this possible in a way it wasn't 2 years ago. You say yes. What else do you say? You go home and divide your salary by your actual hours. The number that comes out is less than what you made 3 years ago, doing less work before any of this started. Level 5, the cost center. 2.5 years in, you hear the phrase for the first time in a meeting that wasn't supposed to include you. Cost center. That is what your function is now called in a slide deck you were not meant to see. Not team, not department. Cost center. A line item to be minimized, not a group of people to be supported. You read the phrase 3 times. It does not get less cold on the 3rd reading. Your name is not on the slide. Your team's name is. But you know which initials in the corner are yours. You have sat in enough of these decks to know how to read your own name out of a category. This is the moment something becomes clear that nobody explained at the beginning. AI was never going to replace you in the science fiction sense. It was never going to walk into the building and sit at your desk. What it was always going to do, quietly, was make the case for replacing you cheaper to build. It gave the spreadsheet a justification it didn't have 2 years ago. You were not replaced by a machine. You were replaced by a version of the math the machine made possible. A machine replacing you is a story about technology. A spreadsheet replacing you is a story about leverage. And leverage is something a company has been looking for the entire time you've worked there. AI did not create the desire to reduce headcount. It removed the last obstacle standing in the way of it. You start applying to other jobs quietly, on your lunch break, camera off. Every posting lists the same new requirement that didn't exist when you got your current job. AI fluency. You have it. So does everyone else applying. The requirement didn't shrink the applicant pool, it widened it. The skill turned out to be learnable by almost anyone in about 3 weekends. Level 6. The severance letter, 3 years in. It finally happens to you directly. The meeting is 15 minutes long. There is a calendar invite titled Quick Sync that was not a quick sync. There is a person from HR you've never spoken to before, her camera positioned slightly too high, looking down at you the entire time without meaning to. There is a box of tissues visible just outside the camera frame, pre-positioned. Someone thought about this meeting in advance. Someone always does. There is a phrase used twice. Restructuring, not AI. Nobody in this meeting says the word AI. That word would create legal exposure. The word they use instead is efficiency. And efficiency means nothing and everything at the same time. You get 2 weeks of severance for every year you worked, 6 weeks total. You get a laptop return box mailed to your house with a prepaid label. You get an out-of-office message you write yourself, the only piece of this process you have any control over. You go home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday and the house is too quiet. You sit down and open your laptop, the personal one, and you do something that feels almost insulting to do to yourself. You open the same tool, the one you trained 2 junior colleagues to use. The one that made you faster, then replaceable, then made the spreadsheet make sense without you on it. You ask it to help you write your resignation acceptance email back to HR. It does it in 4 seconds. It is better than what you would have written. You sit with that for a long time. Level 7. The job search. 4 months of searching. You apply to 211 jobs. You get 14 first-round interviews. 3 second rounds. 0 offers. You compare notes with your old coworkers. 4 of you got laid off the same quarter. None of you got rehired anywhere close to what you had. You start to notice a pattern in your own group chat before you read about it anywhere. Nobody is hiring back what they cut. They are just not cutting more, and calling that good news. You start to notice something about the postings that remain. The entry-level roles that used to exist, the ones you got your start in, have mostly stopped appearing. Not because that work disappeared, because it now gets absorbed into the job of someone like you, someone who can supervise the tool instead of needing to be supervised. The ladder you climbed has had its bottom rungs quietly removed. Somewhere, a 22-year-old with your exact resume from 6 years ago is applying to the same 14 jobs and getting 0 interviews, because the role that would have trained them no longer exists in a form a company is willing to pay for. This is the part of the story that does not make headlines. It looks like absence, the opportunity that never opened, the hire that never got made. You take a part-time consulting gig to cover rent. You start saying the sentence out loud to friends at dinner, the one you didn't believe 2 years ago. It wasn't going to replace me. It was going to make me cheaper to replace. Level 8, the adapted. A year after the layoff. You found something. It is not what you had. You are doing adjacent work now, in a smaller company for slightly less money, with a title that sounds similar but means something different. You spend your days reviewing and correcting the output of the same kind of tool that helped end your last job. Not doing the work from scratch. Auditing what a machine produced quickly and imperfectly, fixing what it got wrong, taking responsibility for an output you did not fully create. You are good at this. You hate how good you are at this. You adapted faster than most. You learned the tools early, stayed 2 steps ahead of where the industry was moving instead of 1 step behind. This bought you something. It did not buy you safety. It bought you a slightly longer runway. A job that exists for now in a market still figuring out exactly how much of your old profession it actually needs humans for. Nobody can tell you, with any honesty, where the floor is. The people who build these tools cannot tell you. Economists studying the data publish contradictory numbers in the same month. Some say the disruption is overstated, a convenient excuse for layoffs companies wanted to make anyway. Some say it is understated, a slow bleed that hasn't shown up in the statistics yet. You live inside that uncertainty now. The skill that used to define your value, the years of training, the credentials still matter. They just don't insulate you the way you were told they would when you were 22, choosing a major based on which fields were considered safe. Nothing was safe. It was just slower to arrive for some people than others. Level 9, the one they kept. 4 years in at the new company, you are not the one who got cut this time, you are the one who got to stay. There is a version of this story that nobody films because it does not look like loss from the outside. Your team goes from 6 to 4. You are one of the 4. You should feel relief. For about a week you do, then you understand what staying actually costs. You are not doing your old job anymore. You are doing your old job plus the parts of 2 other jobs that used to belong to the people who are gone, with the tool absorbing what it can and you absorbing the rest. Your title did not change. Your salary went up 4%, the same as every year before this one, as if 4% could possibly be the correct price for 3 people's work landing on one desk. You stop leaving at 6 o'clock. You start leaving at 8 o'clock, then 9 o'clock, telling yourself it's temporary, that things will normalize once the team rebuilds. The team does not rebuild. Headcount approvals that used to take a week now take a quarter, then take forever, because the tool makes "we'll manage without backfilling that role" a sentence finance can say with a straight face. You become, without ever applying for the position, the kind of employee who is quietly impossible to live without and quietly impossible to promote, because promoting you would require backfilling the work you currently do for free, under the name of being a team player. You watch a colleague get the layoff. You watch yourself get the workload. You are no longer sure which one is the worse outcome. You used to think survival meant safety. You are starting to understand that survival just means you were next in line for a different kind of cost. You do not say any of this out loud at work. Everyone around you is doing some version of the same math, silently, and nobody wants to be the first one to say the number. Level 10. The one who knows. You are sitting in a performance review, a different company, a different chair. Your manager says the word efficiency 3 times in 11 minutes. You count. You know exactly what that word is going to mean in roughly 18 months, because you have already lived this sequence once, start to finish, and the sequence does not change much from industry to industry. It only changes speed. Someone on your team mentions a new tool. You are not the confident one this time. You are the one who already knows what the confidence costs. You do not say anything dramatic in the meeting. You learned the hard way that the warning does not land before the experience does. You simply open your laptop that night and start updating your resume quietly 2 years before you think you'll need it, because you now understand the actual timeline of this kind of ending. It does not arrive as an event. It arrives as a slope, and the only real advantage anyone gets is noticing the slope before the spreadsheet does. Somewhere right now, in an office very much like the one you sat in 5 years ago, someone is trying a tool for the first time. Out of curiosity. On a Tuesday afternoon. They are not as good as me, they think, with real relief in the thought. They have no idea what that relief is about to cost them. They'll learn. They always do. The cycle continues.